The year is 4 BBY. The Rebel Commander Jun Sato and Jedi Ezra Bridger are on a mission to uncover what's happened to a missing Rebel patrol. While en route to the ship's last known point, their ship is interdicted and pulled out of hyperspace by the Imperial Navy, leading to their capture. Sato manages to get a distress call out before comms are cut off. And luckily for him, the ragtag rescue team being assembled contains a very special individual. And no, I'm not talking about the exceptionally talented pilot Harrison Dula, nor am I talking about the wise Jedi Kanan Jarrus. It's not even Zeb, the strong and agile Lasat. I'm talking about the bald, bearded, fat guy who can't fit into some standard Imperial Stormtrooper armor. How dare I, right? Well, for those of you guys who aren't huge Star Wars fans, this guy's name is Captain Rex. Or was he a commander at the end of his career? Anyway, while Rex might be past his, peak fighting years, what he has in his head is invaluable in this situation. You see, Captain Rex, as a clone ARC trooper, was assigned to Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, and he was extremely busy. Skywalker was a bit independent from the larger Grand Army of the Republic and was just constantly being sent to hotspots around the galaxy, and so whatever experience a clone usually gets from war will double it when you're talking about Captain Rex.
In my book, experience outranks everything.
And so when Captain Rex and Kanan Jarrus are sent to rescue their fellow rebels, Captain Rex's experience in the Grand Army of the Republic really pays off. He sounds just like how an Imperial soldier should sound, and he also remembers all the codes and protocols from back in the Clone Wars. It is kind of strange that the Empire didn't change any of this like 15 years later.
Boy, are we glad to see you. We have a 157. Repeat, a 157.
This is a 675 test zone and off limits to you, S257.
Well, if we don't get some help soon, we're gonna have a 3376 on our hands.
Captain Rex is so at ease in this conversation that he's able to get concessions from the flight controller and actually land inside the target vessel he's trying to infiltrate.
I don't think you're gonna want to have a 3376 off your starboard side now, would you, sir?
Shuttle S257, requesting your emergency access code.
Copy that, sir.
Now, this is super valuable. It means that the rebels can infiltrate the ship without alerting enemies that they're there, making the entire extraction operation a lot simpler. And herein lies the big problem with the Empire betraying the clones, not taking care of them, and just decommissioning them. But before we get there, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, saber.com. They got two really awesome products, starting off with this dark saber replica known as the Black Moon Saber. This is the symbol of leadership for all Mandalorians, and whoever wields this gets control over the Mandalorian throne. The Black Moon Saber is an all-around excellent replica of this uniquely shaped lightsaber, from its rugged and heavy metallic hilt to its sword-like LED blade. saber.com has also released this scabbard, which is really cool. It's got these cutouts right here. This says Saber in Arabesh, and there's also like a little D-ring here that you can hang onto your belt should you want. This is a great piece of kit to have when you're cosplaying and you want a little extra protection on your lightsaber. It's also great for practicing those quick draw attacks right from the scabbard. If you order Padawan or Master Sabers, you can get a scabbard for 50% off. If you purchase a replica saber, you get the scabbard for free. Just add all of the items into your cart along with the saber at checkout, and discounts will be applied automatically. We also have a promo code, MAN20, that's all caps, and it'll give you 20% off of your purchase. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. You see, as much as Palpatine wanted a new army, a new fleet, a new political system, a new military-industrial complex, he couldn't get everything new. At the end of the day, the Empire was just a continuation of the Galactic Republic because it's just a waste to completely destroy everything and rebuild it from the ground up. And so a lot of the operating procedures, the military doctrine, how the logistics were handled, were all hand-me-downs from the Clone Wars.
Cody and I practically invented these emergency protocols back in the Clone War. Trust me, the codes are good.
The codes that Commander Cody and Rex created are just one of the many valuable assets that these old troopers have at their disposal. Why do they only use Republic Commandos to train the TK troopers? Why not use the regular clones? Cycle them off of combat duty. They've done their jobs already, but give them like non-com positions or something like that. They definitely are going to be a huge benefit to your system. The alternative, which is having a bunch of unemployed clones out of your system, looking for work, most likely dangerous and violent work, is far worse. Even if only a handful of clones like Hauser, Gregor, Cody, and Rex choose to fight the Empire, they could do crazy amounts of damage because of their insider knowledge. I would go as far to say that Emperor Palpatine should have been more threatened by his clone army than he is by the Jedi. And that's because the Jedi are predictable. They have a code which can be exploited. The clones were not only some of the finest soldiers ever created in galactic history, I also consider them the first Republic soldiers in the modern era. Remember, when the Clone Wars started, there had been a 1,000-year period of peace that preceded it. This was defined by the complete demilitarization of the federal military force. And so as the first generation of new soldiers, the clone troopers had to learn quite a lot under fire. There was simply no older generation to teach them, no older officers who could pass down their wisdom. I mean, sure, these clones had an unprecedented 9 years of continuous training, tutoring, and hands-on experience in all types of combat situations. It's close to the real thing, but most combat plans need to be modified the second you have contact. And since the clones were severely outnumbered and constantly being stationed on the front lines, this meant that they had a lot of time and chances to experiment and learn how to become better soldiers, well, at least the ones who survived. And so it's really their experience that fills out all of those great volumes of military tactics and strategy textbooks at the Imperial Academy system. Now, I know right now we're seeing a lot of derision from Imperial officers against the clones, but this most likely is just a part of the recent propaganda initiative to paint the clones as dangerous because Palpatine just wants to get rid of them without too much dissent. But in the days prior and the days after this, when that propaganda dies down, I mean, the clones were heralded as saviors of the Republic, some of the finest soldiers in the galaxy. Everyone loved them. It's basically Keanu Reeves, but printed many times. As a matter of fact, Armitage Hux's father, the creator of the First Order Stormtrooper program, greatly admired the clone troopers. And so he decided to recruit and raise all of the First Order Stormtroopers from a very young age so that he can try to replicate the same type of training, discipline, and loyalty that the clones had. I mean, most non-clone veterans of the Clone Wars that served alongside the Grand Army of the Republic really had a positive opinion about these clones. And so what Emperor Palpatine has created here is one of the greatest threats to his rule and legitimacy. He essentially has pissed off an entire group of highly trained clones who all have nothing to do right now and are very skilled at killing things. They are perfectly positioned to really aid a lot of Emperor Palpatine's enemies and kind of shift the balance against the Empire. I mean, look at this raid that Echo carries out against this Gazanti Imperial prison ship. Boarding operations are tricky at the best of times, especially when you're the assaulter and you're outnumbered. But the clones carry out a textbook assault. They approach the Gazanti from its rear where visibility and sensors are limited. They have a secondary assault team, which allows the clones to outflank the defenders who are prepared to repel what they think is the main attacking force. It's almost as if these clones knew how the TK troopers would respond and exactly how many of them were on the ship and what the layout of the vessel was. I think the fact that they have Gregor along with them, a former Republic commander who actually trained these TK troopers, also gives them a huge edge. But the clones do have a weakness, and I think that is their lack of initiative. The sad truth is the majority of these clones are not going to desert the Empire. They're probably going to stay until they are decommissioned. I mean, only the clones that have been heavily influenced by their commanders are going to be able to develop the right personality to actually leave. The clones were all just children at the end of the day. They were ready for combat by the age of 9, and they came ready with all of those combat skills and knowledge pre-installed. But everything else, like how to be a human being, was either taught to them by mercenaries or Jedi. I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of clones that defected either fought with a Jedi commander or were trained by one of Fett's Mandalorian Kuval Dar members. But ultimately, this group of clones that defect, it's probably going to be pretty small. And since we already know quite a lot about Galactic Empire history and there's no real mention of a mass clone rebellion, I'm going to assume that this clone movement doesn't grow that much larger. But that doesn't really matter that much because the clones' real value, just like Captain Rex's real value, is all in their heads. I mean, the clones can continue launching raids and operations on Imperial targets and, cause a headache for regional and local commanders. But to really threaten the Empire, pose a galactic-wide threat, the clones have to figure out how to remove all that knowledge from their heads. Well, not remove it, but just pass that knowledge onto a new generation of non-clone rebels. The Clone Rebellion has happened a bit too early, of course. The real Rebel Alliance doesn't start engaging the Empire openly for at least another decade or so. But the clones do have connections to Senator Chuchi, who is in Bail Organa's inner circle. So maybe there's a hope that connections can be made and something can happen here. If the clones are able to transfer all of their years of combat experience and their intimate knowledge of how the Empire works to the Rebel High Command. I mean, this would be so invaluable. And this might also explain why the Rebel Alliance early on are so successful at outwitting the Empire. And the clones were really well trained for doing this. I mean, clones like Captain Rex carried out foreign internal defense missions all the time and trained local insurgents like Saw Gerrera, for instance. Which wasn't really the best idea now that I think about it, but the point here is that these clones are used to training, relatively inexperienced people or militias and turning them into an actual insurgency force. On top of that, Captain Rex and his clones might be spending most of their time right now rescuing their brothers, but what happens when there are no more clones in jail? Where will they turn their energy to then? It's an interesting question that I haven't fully figured out yet, but it would be nice to see that, retroactively, these clones had a huge effect on how the Rebel infantry functioned. I mean, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room right there, in the lore to create that kind of connection. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,